Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff with Fluent American checking in. And today we're going to be looking at ways to make your speech sound a little bit more engaging, interesting for your viewers and your listeners and things like that. So, what I see with a lot of students is they tend to sound a little bit flat when they're talking. So we're going to be trying to find ways to make sure that what you're saying is expressing emotion, it's doing things to keep people interested and invested in what you're saying. So we're going to go over a couple of techniques related to pitch, stress, intonation, and all that. As I go through this, I have the chat box open as well. So please feel free if you have questions or other thoughts about what we're doing, feedback, feel free to post it in the chat box because there's lots of ways to do what we're about to do. So we're just going to highlight some things, some quick suggestions, but this is very subjective. There's a million ways to do this. Everyone kind of has their own techniques. So definitely feel free to use what's best for you. Okay. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Okay, so we're working with a poem again called The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, and we're going to be kind of highlighting, what are some things with this that we're going to be able to do. Again, our key things, we're going to start off by kind of focusing on stress. Okay, so we'll identify what are some things that we can do to play with stress to make the stress more engaging and more interesting. Okay, we're also going to be paying attention to things like pitch. We're also going to be playing with speed. Even a little bit with things like volume, like how loud you're saying things. All of these are key components that can make what you're sounding more interesting and more engaging. So let's just kind of start off with stress. Let's look at this poem. Let's try to identify what are some key words here that we think we could stress that would engage our listeners a little bit more. Okay. So April is actually, even before we do that, let's kind of read this in a way that sounds a little bit flat. When people are reading this, what's the normal way that a lot of people read this? Even native speakers. Like, April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding us a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Okay, so that's a relatively flat way of reading this. We're not really adding a whole lot of pitch and intonation and stress and things like that. Everything's very, we would say, like monotone because everything's at about the same volume level. And it's definitely not what you want when you're reading these things. Okay, so if we were reading this, what are some places where we could put stress? So for instance, this is a poem, so there's all kinds of relationships going on. And by stressing words, we can make those relationships a little bit clearer. So for instance, April, I probably put some stress there, is the cruelest month. Cruelest is a very strong adjective, so I would suggest giving that a little bit of stress. And also for month. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land. Notice again, this is a poem. Like I said, poems are often repeating structures. They're trying to have lots of patterns and things like this. So notice that we have April, heavy stress, cruelest month. Lilacs, heavy stress, dead land. The same thing with the next line too, mixing memory and desire. So again, we have two nouns here, no description. So like memory, desire. Let's emphasize those a little bit more. Stirring dull roots with spring rain. I like these adjectives. I might give extra attention to them. Dull with spring. Next line, winter kept us warm. So we have these W sounds. Again, it's a poem. They're paying attention to lots of things, including sounds. So notice that winter is starting with a W, warm is starting with a W. So to emphasize that more, I might make those our stresses. It's like winter kept us warm. It's reducing the kept us. Covering earth in forgetful snow. And this kind of goes back to what we had originally with like the one stress, pause, and then two stresses. Feeding a little life with dried tubers. And again, I might stress little and dried, which kind of goes back to what we had, the dull roots and spring rain. So there's lots of kind of repetitions of patterns here that I think are really making this, that with the right stress, you can really make stand out. And then summer surprised us. So surprise, to even give a little bit of surprise, what you can do is give the stress there. Okay, so these are the words that I personally would stress. Again, this is subjective. There's other words you could stress. There's other ways you could play with this too. This is just my own suggestion. So let's kind of read through it a little bit. It's like, April is the cruelest month. So again, April is the cruelest month. Compare that to how we originally said it when it was flat. April is the cruelest month. But now, April is the cruelest month. Each of those getting stress. This kind of also relates to speed. Okay, these are stressed words. So when a word is stressed, you want to say it a little bit slower. So instead of just saying April is the cruelest month, April is the cruelest month. So again, going especially slow on month. Notice that the is the, it gets reduced. It's almost like you don't even hear it. You know, you could almost erase it. It's like April is the, I'm like cutting it out. April is the cruelest month. Breeding lilacs out of the dead land. Again, we have another video that talks about contrast and the importance of contrast. And contrast basically means doing different things at different times. So for instance, what I can do here is I'm changing the speed. So for instance, lilacs, holding nice and slow, out of the, that I'm going faster. So again, I'm having contrast. One part I say slow, another part I say fast. Lilacs, out of the dead land. And now I'm going slow again. Out of the dead land. Lilacs out of the dead land. Okay, so notice what's happening there again as well. Okay. Mixing memory. Again, stressed words, so I'm going slower. Mixing memory and desire. Memory and desire. Memory and desire. Stirring dull roots with spring rain. Dull roots with spring rain. So again, I want in the stresses that I was giving, I'm giving a lot of attention to the adjectives. That's again my choice here. So to do that, what am I doing? I'm going slower on dull and I'm going slower on spring. The other words, I'm doing faster. Dull roots with spring rain. Dull roots with spring rain. This also ties in with volume. What am I doing? I'm saying these words because I'm stressing them. I'm saying them at a louder volume than the other words. Dull roots with spring rain. Dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm. Winter kept us warm. Again, playing with speed. Slowing down on winter, slowing down on warm. I'm playing also with volume. Louder on winter, louder on warm. Okay. Kept us, I'm saying faster. Winter kept us warm. Winter kept us warm. Okay. What that also does by playing with the speed, that allows you the W sounds to come out even more strongly. So like winter kept us warm. The W in winter is closer to the W in warm when you speed up the kept us, so it stands out more. Winter kept us warm. Covering earth and forgetful snow. Earth and forgetful snow. You can even hear the rhythm there. Earth and forgetful snow. It's like the. Earth and forgetful snow. Okay. Feeding a little life with dried tubers. So again, I'm stressing little and dried. Excuse me. It's like a little life with dried tubers. A little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Summer surprised us. Raising that pitch. The speed again, slowing down on surprise. Summer surprised us. Okay. All right, so let's read that whole thing again, just kind of with all these little suggestions and things like that. April's the cruelest month. Breeding lilacs out of the dead land. Mixing memory and desire. Stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Okay, that's also, by putting the stress on surprised in that last line, it's a little bit unexpected and it helps draw attention because what you've had to this point is a lot of the starts of lines. The first word gets the stress. But then by changing that stress to surprised in that last line, it draws interest because the person listening to you, they're expecting you to put the stress on summer because that's kind of the pattern you've had this entire time. But instead, what are you doing? You're putting it on surprise. So that just by changing that stress, it's a little bit unexpected. It helps your listener is going to be just kind of naturally drawn to that. Like, oh, you broke the rhythm. Anytime you break the rhythm in something, what you do is you generate interest. People aren't expecting it, so that catches their attention. Okay. To give you an example of that again, let's just kind of read those last three again. Earth and forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. You can hear the rhythm there. It's a little bit disrupted. It's not like it's been before. Okay. You can even play more with volume. So how would this, for instance, sound if we raised the volume a little bit more on a stress word and we lowered the volume more on all the other words? April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. So again, this is more contrast, things like that. I'm playing with the volume now. I played with the stress, played with the pitch and the speed and things like that. Let's now say, so this is one place where we could put the stresses. You can also, of course, play with stresses. Let's just take a look at lines and kind of just play with the stresses, just see what happens and how that changes the sound. So let's say, for instance, for each line, we're only going to stress one word. So let's say, for instance, let's say in the first line, we stress month, land, desire, rain. Let's say just for fun, let's say we want to stress us. We really want to emphasize that it was us, me and another person. Okay, earth and forgetful snow. Let's say I want to stress earth. Let's say I want to stress tubers. And then lastly, again, let's say I want to stress us. Okay. So I'm going to say each of these lines twice. The first one, I'm going to use it with our original stress. And then the second one with these adjusted stresses. Okay, so the first sentence, our original stress. April is the cruelest month, breeding, versus April is the cruelest month, breeding. Okay, how about the next line? Originally, it was lilacs out of the dead land, mixing, and now it becomes lilacs out of the dead land, mixing. Our next line, original, memory and desire, stirring, versus memory and desire, stirring. Original for the next line, dull roots with spring rain. Now it's the stress, right? Dull roots with spring rain. Our next line, winter kept us warm, covering. And now if we just stress us, winter kept us warm, covering. Next line, original stress, earth and forgetful snow, feeding. Now with the adjusted stress, earth and forgetful snow, feeding. Next line, a little life with dried tubers. Now stressing tubers, a little life with dried tubers. And then summer surprised us versus summer surprised us. Okay, so again, just by playing with stress, you change the meaning, you change the sound of the sentence. It's going to have a different effect on the person you're talking to. So all these techniques about, paying attention to stress, paying attention to pitch, speed, things like that, these all have an effect on the emotion of what you're saying, on the importance of what you're saying. They also, again, are going to keep people interested in what you're saying just by playing around with it more. Okay, just one more time, I'm going to read it with a flat, kind of no real intonation, stress, things like that. Keep it relatively flat. And I'm going to read it again with our original. April's the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Okay, so if that's how you currently are reading things, or that's currently how you talk, it's going to sound really flat, and it's going to disengage the people that you're talking to. Okay. If you want to, again, to just give it a little bit more energy and make it a little bit more dynamic, we add some stresses, we add some intonation and things like that. And so, again, the second result that we get sounds more like this. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Okay. So again, those are just some quick suggestions and notes for times when you need to read something out loud or times when you need to talk to other people. Ways to kind of make what you're saying and what you're reading a little bit more engaging. If you have other suggestions or you want to kind of just play around with this, other ideas on words you could stress or words that you wouldn't stress, feel free to post them in the comments. Just some other quick things, of course. Feel free to also check out things like our Telegram group. Okay, you can do this by checking out our Patreon page. So again, the way Patreon works is you contribute a certain amount per month, and then you have access to different things we have. So for instance, we have a Telegram group where we do daily pronunciation exercises. I make recordings, and then I listen to your recordings, and then I provide feedback on what you said. Okay, so that's $5 for access for the entire month. And that's much, much, much cheaper than a pronunciation class. I see some teachers charging $30, $40, $50 for like a pronunciation class. That's very expensive. This is $5 for the full month, and you get access to daily practice and feedback. So it's definitely a good value. Thank you guys so much for your time. I will see you in a future video. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. You take care.